This is a podcast about relationships between us and God and between us and our loved ones and friends. And so I want to do a podcast today a little bit differently because I'm going to talk about what I've learned here in Tahiti about relationships that I couldn't have learned perhaps in any other way except serving a mission here for 18 months. So, people here in Tahiti often ask me, so how did you learn your French or your Tahitian? I say, well, I served my first mission here. And then they say, well, when did you serve here? And Tahitians like to joke, so I often say, well, my first mission was 1866 to 1868. Addison Pratt landed in Tupua in 1844, and I came just a few years after that. They laugh, and then I say, actually, my first mission was 1966 to 1968. Then they usually say, wow, 1966, whoa, I wasn't even born then. And then I hold up my index finger and I say, nobody was born then. I'm the only one left. Again, more chuckles. But they love to laugh and joke, so I do that with them. During my first mission here, missions were 2.5 years, so I began my mission almost 60 years ago. Some have asked me what it's like to serve a second mission in the same country. I've had a hard time responding to this question because so many emotions have taken hold of me. Now that we're approaching the end of our service here in Tahiti, I think I know how to respond to their question. So what's it like to serve a mission in the same place that you served as a young person? My short response, it is a very unique experience, almost indescribable. But my return to Tahiti centers on what I might call full circle encounters, a renewal of old relationships, old friendships that have been dormant for nearly 60 years. I've never experienced anything quite like it. So I want to give you a few examples of these full circle encounters that I've had. So I'm at a zone conference, and it was ending, and we were in a large cultural hall in Papehue Stake Center, and I was helping clean up after the lunch, and a tall Tahitian woman approached me. I remember you well when you served your first mission, she said. I, of course, did not recognize her because 60 years can change one's appearance. When I saw your name tag, she said, I remembered the time you sang O Holy Night in the Wharipiti Cultural Hall. Now let me say, I had to comb through my memory to remember singing O Holy Night at Christmas time in Tahiti so many years ago. She said, oh, I will never forget that. I will never forget your voice on that night singing O Holy Night. I was astounded how anyone could remember me singing a Christmas song 60 years ago. I was amazed. And just so you know, the Wharipiti Cultural Hall doesn't exist anymore. It was completely razed and a new building was built in its place, so that is a long time ago. Second one, during the 180th celebration of Addison Pratt's arrival in Tahiti in 1844, I attended a special gala one evening at the City Hall at Pirai, a city close to Papeete. This is where we live, just outside of Papeete. I was looking at the impressive displays when 2 men my age walked up and said, we've been talking about you. We heard that you had come back. And we could just hardly believe you were here again. Then he began to stroke my arm, almost as if to say, I need to touch you to make sure it's you. I smiled and said, yes, this is me in the flesh. I'm still alive. They smiled, and we talked about old times when they sang in my youth choir. So when I led that choir, I was 19 years old, and they were probably 15 or 16. Another one, a word about the youth choir. Now, in Tahitian, the word pupu means group. I know that sounds kind of funny in English, but pupu is group, and himene means song. So together, pupu himene means song group or choir. The mission president knew I had sung in the tabernacle choir for a year before I arrived in the mission field, and he wanted a youth choir, so he asked me to direct it. It was one of the most challenging things I've ever done because I couldn't speak enough French or Tahitian at the time to communicate with them. There was no MTC at the time, and my high school French didn't go very far, let me tell you. So here's another full circle encounter. When Lolly and I visited Tahiti in 2009, we met the Taratis. He was serving at the time as Area 70 here in French Polynesia. We had always wanted to reconnect with them when we came back, but until recently our paths had not crossed. Then one day I was excited. As I exited the temple, I saw Brother Torati and talked to him for a few minutes. After we talked, I said, "And your wife, is she here?" And he said, "Oh, she's right over there." And he pointed to two women talking further down the sidewalk. I approached them. Sister Torati recognized me. We embraced. But the woman next to her, surprisingly, also recognized me when she saw my missionary name tag. Gray hair in a brightly colored Tahitian dress, typical of all Tahitian women. She looked me over from head to foot, gazed at my name tag, and said, "Os gu torp." "Oh, I remember you," she said. "You directed our Pupuhimene. Wow, did I have a crush on you." This surprised me. She says, "You were handsome. Oh boy, were you handsome." Sister Tarati and I were surprised at her comment, and both of us started to laugh. And then when we started to laugh, the woman said, "Oh, no, wait a minute now. I've got to be honest. He was handsome." And she said, "If I'd been a few years older, I would have married you." We laughed even louder. This was definitely the funniest full circle encounter I've had in Tahiti. Another one. Lolly and I were exiting a restaurant, and a silver-haired Tahitian woman looked up at me from her seat and said, "Elder Osgathorpe, I remember you. I saw your name tag, and then I remembered. I was one of the young women in your Pupuhimene." This Pupuhimene, I got a lot of mileage out of this thing. "My name then," she said, "was Fifi Maritarangi. Do you remember my dad, Hiro?" "I remember him well," I said. Her father was kind of an anchor member of the church. Everyone knew Hiro Maritarangi. I had a hard time believing that she could remember me, though, after so many years. We talked, and she said that she and her husband were about to serve another senior mission here in Tahiti themselves. Another encounter. When our new temple president was beginning his service in the temple, he recognized me immediately, and just like Fifi, he reminded me that he had sung in my choir. Last year, when we traveled to Tupoi, the island where Addison Pratt landed in 1844, I attended the Tiona Ward. That's how they say Zion, the Zion Ward, they call it. And after the meeting, showed the slides I had taken as a young missionary to an 84-year-old member of the ward. He recognized someone in almost every slide. It was astounding to me. These slides are very old. They were taken 60 years ago, and he recognized these people from long, long ago. He pointed to a young man playing basketball and said, "That's me." I couldn't believe it. There he was at age 23 in the photo. He reminded me that as a young missionary, I helped him with his wedding. In another photo, he said, "That's Emil Hoffman. You need to show that to his wife." Interestingly, I had sat next to Emil's wife during sacrament meeting, so I already was acquainted with her. She was a frail, 90-year-old woman who seemed very alert and eager to interact. I took my iPad and sat down next to Sister Hoffman and showed her the photo of her husband when he was 30-something. She touched the screen and then repeated in hushed tones, "Oh, Emil. Oh, Emil. Oh, Emil." Only a week later, I met a man from Tupoi in the temple who knew I had just visited his island. "Did you hear?" he said. 2 days after you left Tupoi, Sister Hoffman passed away." I could still see her touching the screen and repeating her husband's name. It was almost as if she was saying, "Emil, I'm coming. I am coming." So when someone asks me what it's like to serve a second mission in the same country where you served your first mission, I will try to help them understand that it's all about encounters, renewing relationships that have lain dormant for decades. Full circle encounters. You kind of come full circle. That's what this mission's been a little bit like for me. I feel like I've come full circle. The experience makes me feel more whole in some unexplainable way, as if you were supposed to renew these relationships, as if all relationships, no matter how far distant, deserve to be renewed and briefly relived. How grateful I am that we have had this unique experience to return to this island I fell in love with 60 years ago. I hope in some way this is helpful for you. I hope you will have full circle encounters of your own. It doesn't have to be serving in a place where you first served a mission, but you can still have these relationships that lie dormant for a long time, and you renew them, and something magical happens. Hope this has been helpful for you. We'll see you next time.